Here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
Hi, this is Austin from Amusement Insider, and you're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Clint Novak, and you're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast on Podbean.
I accept the Coaster Challenge.
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 Do you accept the Coaster Challenge?
What is the Coaster Challenge? A group of regular people that went from fearful to fearless, all from riding roller coasters. So please secure your hats and glasses. It's time to take the Coaster Challenge. Here are your hosts, David Cantu and Jenna Gazelle.
Hey, how's it going, Jenna?
Great. How about you, Dave?
Doing good. How's your week going?
I don't even know where to start with that one.
No, I know that feeling. It's been one crazy week for me, mostly with work.
Well,
you have the summer off, though,
yeah,
which is really nice.
I get to sleep in.
You get to sleep in, but I get to get up every morning and have to go to work. But it's good though. I'm glad that it's nice to be able to get work. For me, it's just been booming this year, and
I'm sure
it's just amazing. And it's just really glad to just see everybody's out and about, and everyone's having a good summer. And just from seeing everything going on around the country at parks, and just seeing some of my friends out there who have YouTube channels and also podcasts as well, there's been a lot of very exciting activities happening at all the parks around the country this year.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that they're going to be bringing back all the Fright Fest stuff for October. I was kind of concerned about that.
Oh yeah, it's all full swing, full speed ahead on that, and I can't wait. Fall is going to be approaching pretty quickly. I mean, this summer's really flying by. But we've got a very special guest on today. We got Darren, and Darren was formerly hosted the unofficial Orlando podcast, and he had spun off, and he's also doing what's called the Dead Man's podcast, and he's with Andrew today.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Andrew is standing by with Darren. But first, we are going to do our lovely segment called the YouTube Highlight Clip of the Week. YouTube Clip of the Week. All right, so in this week's YouTube Highlight Clip of the Week, we found a very interesting video clip. I would say it's something I've never done ever on a roller coaster. I've never heard of anybody. I'm pretty sure many coaster enthusiasts have tried to do this before.
I couldn't do it.
Especially if you're riding certain coasters like X2 or Top Thrill Dragster, maybe even Steel Vengeance. But there was a gentleman who decided to do a personal challenge, and it's called Dude Keeps Straight Face on a Roller Coaster Ride. So this gentleman decided he was going to keep a straight face on a roller coaster, and it happens to be the roller coaster I got to experience a couple years ago. It was Goliath over at Six Flags Over Georgia. It's a hyper coaster from B&M, and I know this coaster very well, Jenna, because this was actually the first coaster that I've experienced that actually grayed me out.
So you mean when you say gray out, because I'm not the coaster enthusiast like you are, you mean like blacked out, right?
Close to being blacked out. I mean, It's like when you're like, I started graying out during the helix of Goliath, and what happens is your vision just starts to fade. Okay. And everything starts going gray, and you start feeling a little like dizzy. I wouldn't say dizzy, but it's like almost like part of a faint in a way. And actually, coaster enthusiasts that I know, they get excited when they get a chance to gray out. There's a couple of coasters around the country that do it. I know that Intimidator 305 over at King's Dominion, there's once you make that major drop in the beginning, there you go up this hill, and apparently, and I've experienced it there too, but it makes everybody start to gray out on that when you start going up the bunny hill.
No. No, I'm sure Mike would love something like that. Not me.
Yeah, but no, this guy, literally from beginning to end, is going through Goliath, and he's literally kept
a straight face.
no smile, no reaction from any of the drops or
a poker face. I mean, that's what it is. It's a poker face. I've never seen anybody do it.
Yeah, and the one thing I will tell everybody out there, do not try this at home, kids. This guy literally videotaped himself while on this ride, and that's something that I will definitely like to highlight. It's something I don't recommend people to do, is don't be bringing recording devices that you hold in your hand while on a ride, because many people who do that do end up losing their phones or losing their GoPros or whatever. It's like...
the dangers of that, I just can imagine, like, being on one of those rides and somebody losing their cell phone or their GoPro and it hitting somebody else behind them.
And it's one thing if you have your GoPro, strapped to your wrist or to your chest or one thing, but yeah, I've experienced the GoPro wrist strap when I did the sky jump at the Stratosphere in Las Vegas. It's pretty cool. Just got to learn to keep your hand out. But yeah, this guy, I don't know what device he used, but he managed to keep it in front of his face the whole time. And if it happens to be a phone, I will tell people, do not record yourself. Do not even pull out your phone.
Whatsoever.
It's not worth it. But this guy luckily did not lose his phone during the ride, but I'm just amazed that this is a guy that literally kept a straight face throughout the entire ride. Very interesting. Goliath, most hyper coasters are very fun, but if this guy wants to make this a challenge, like an ice bucket challenge, then I have a few. If he happens to be listening to this episode, I would give him some recommendations. Try to keep a straight face on Top Thrill Dragster. Try to keep a straight face on X2. Ooh. I would say Kinda Ka would be one. Or here's a good one, and I know you haven't experienced this, but I know that if Andrew's listening or Iva's listening or any coaster enthusiast who has been to Holiday World for Hollywood Nights, try to keep a straight face on the Voyage night ride. That would be a challenge. It is that intense. That would be a great challenge. If you can keep a straight face during that ride, then I'd say you'd be a pro at it.
I mean, even being that I've gone on X, I couldn't imagine trying to keep a straight face on X.
Especially that straight down part on that beginning of that
loop.
Yeah.
We won't talk about that one.
But yeah, this was a very interesting clip. I've kind of found it to be hilarious because I was just amazed. He kept that same reaction the whole time. I was like, wow.
While the people behind him are like screaming, laughing, whatever it is.
It's just amazing. So yeah, if you guys want to check it out, the title is called Dude Keeps Straight Face on Roller Coaster Ride. Very interesting video. It's about a 2-minute video. But yeah, give it a shot. Hopefully you guys get a good laugh at it. But this would be a great YouTube highlight clip of the week. YouTube clip of the week. All right, so Andrew is standing by with our special guest Darren today, and this is actually going to be a pretty cool episode, Jenna.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, because he's kind of talking about everything that's leading up to the fall. I mean, essentially.
Yeah. Exciting. I mean, he's really big when it comes to horror nights and all the Halloween events as well. So this is a very exciting episode, guys. Hope you guys take the time to listen to it. But anyway, take it away, Andrew.
Thank you, David and Jenna. This is Andrew, one of the producers of the Coaster Challenge podcast, joining you again. Today, I'm going to be doing an interview with a coaster and theme park enthusiast. His name is Darren Schmidt. Welcome to the podcast, Darren.
What's up, Internet? Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Why don't you start off just by telling us about yourself?
All right. Well, my name is Darren Schmidt. I formerly hosted the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast. I'm located in Central Florida. Very recently, I had to leave the show due to work obligations, but I had been on the show for the past 9 years. I've done a lot of talking about Universal in the past. And I also spun off the Dead Man's Digest, which is the Halloween Horror Nights centric podcast from that show, which is still going as soon as we start getting some more news about Horror Nights this year. So, but I've always been a huge fan of theme parks. I think like one of my first memories is in a theme park, going to Kings Island and stuff with my family when I was younger. So just as far as I can remember, it's just been the place at the same relaxing and making me extremely nervous at the same time, depending on what we're talking about. Gotcha.
Yeah, definitely. You can have a whirlwind of emotions in environments like that. And yeah, and you're in good company there with regard to Horror Nights. I'm a huge haunt fan. I'm a huge horror movie fan. In fact, you and I got connected up and while we're doing the interview today because because of our mutual friend Ian Kaufman, who's going to be on this podcast as well. And he and I are good friends, talk every day, sometimes all day long, have a lot of common interests, theme parks, roller coasters, but especially just kind of pop culture, a lot of music, horror movies, a lot of, TV shows, a lot of common interests. So, it's good to see. I'm not surprised that, since you and Ian are friends as well, that you have that horror side too, because that's a big thing for Ian and myself. So, yeah, and I've been to haunts all over the country and horror nights on both coasts, Not Scary Farm, independent haunts, Six Flags, you name it. I'm not saying this just because I now live here in Florida and have been living here for the past few years, being this with absolute certainty as far as an opinion can go, that Halloween Horror Nights here in Orlando is my favorite haunt. It's so much better than the Hollywood version, with all due respect to them. Even Not Scary Farm, I don't know what it is, but Orlando, it's just something special. The Universal Creative, the team involved with that, Mike, et cetera, although he's now working more in the universe, but the team that works on this stuff, they just go above and beyond. And not sure how much we'll talk about HHN today, but even if we don't get into it much today, perhaps we can have you on again later in the year. We're planning on doing some nice haunt coverage in October, but it's kind of a few things to come. But anyways, yeah, big fan of horror.
Definitely.
So
excellent. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. What I'd like to do is kind of continue on with the interview here. And we typically kind of have a typical rundown, and we're following that same basic formula today, although not necessarily just looking at things from a coaster perspective, but more as a general theme park perspective, where we talk about attractions and attractions that you may want to talk about. They could be coasters, or they may not be. So it's totally up to you. So with that in mind, the first question, what was the first theme park attraction that you remember experiencing?
The first one that sticks in my head is the Haunted Mansion at Disney. And I think that's what gave me that horror edge when I was a kid, is going there and seeing and I was terrified, to be honest, going into Haunted Mansion to begin with, being that young, and then going in and finding out how awesome it was. And then I just fell in love with it. First one I actually chickened out of was at Kings Island, like we were talking about earlier, and it was just a single loop coaster they had. They got rid of it in 87, so I'm dating myself there a little bit, but it was called Demon, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah.
And all it was just a single loop and then go backwards, and that was it. And yeah, I was 5-6 years old, and that was the time where your dad would just pick you up a little bit and he's tall enough, no problem. But yeah, I chickened out and ran away in the line.
All right. Well, we'll probably talk about that more in a moment, but first let's talk about Haunted Mansion. So were you talking about Haunted Mansion at Magic Kingdom here in Florida?
Yes. Yeah, Magic Kingdom.
I was just going to say, are you originally from Florida, or how long have you lived here?
Well, I was originally from Illinois, but I moved here when I was 10 years old. So I've been here since 93.
Oh, wow.
That was one of the first things we did as soon as we moved down, is went to Magic Kingdom. So yeah, that was my first vacation. Once we got to Florida, it was all right, you have to move away from all your friends and stuff, but hey, you can go hang out with Mickey. So we did that, and Universal. So
yeah, I suppose that's for a family, that's got to be like a rite of passage. If you move to Florida, you got to go to a theme park right away, whether it be Disney or otherwise. That makes a lot of sense. So certainly.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so Haunted Mansion. So how old were you? Were you about 10 years old when you went on Haunted Mansion first time?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when I would have been. Yep.
And just how was that experience for you that first time?
Like I said, when I was sitting on the outside, and I'm sure a lot of kids have that same experience. You're at Disney World. Everything is, fairies and pixie dust and nothing really intimidating at all. And then you come across this facade and it is, this looming mansion and everything. And it's called the Haunted Mansion, and the people that work there are not nice like everybody else at Disney. So, and they really played into it back then. So I think they saw that I was a little nervous, and they were just really pushing into it. Yeah. So waiting in line, I was so scared. I remember, just asking my parents what it was going to be. And of course they're like, oh, I don't know. It could be pretty scary,
right.
Ghost involved and everything. But once I get in there and get in, actually see the ride, it really sparked the love of theme parks for me, the theming, and without even realizing it, really, getting into the Madame Leota's room and, seeing everything floating there. And then it made me want to know how everything worked. And that's really, even the first time through, I remember going through, I'm like, how did they do that? How does this happen? How does that work? So I think that really sparked the love of theme parks in general for me. They had to drag me onto it in the first place for sure.
Gotcha. So I know that you mentioned that you had this kind of chickening out experience on that coaster at Kings Island early on, but in terms of rides that you were afraid to go on, or attractions or whatnot that you were afraid to experience that you did go ahead and experience, would you say that Haunted Mansion is the one that scared you the most, or is there something since then?
I would actually have to give that honor to Busch Gardens 2 times as a child and as an adult. I'll admit it. Kumba was actually my first coaster ever, like a legitimate adult coaster, not one of the little dragon coasters at the fair, That was just, as you're walking up there, you go through the tunnel and it's spiraling around you.
Yeah.
And that was just a point where, I was just so nervous to go on. Probably should have started with Python, but no, I went right on to Kumba. And it was smooth back then and everything. So the rush once I got up there and finally climbed the lift hill, which lift hill is still a big problem for me, I will say. Even to today, I hate a lift hill. It gets me so nervous. I just have to think about something else. The slower lift hill is the worst for me. I'm getting nervous just thinking about it.
That's okay. No lift hills today.
It's the clacking. Yeah, right. It's the clacking, the sound of it, the angle, and then just imagining if I got stuck up there. And I always imagine if I got stuck up there, I'm like, I would just stay up there forever. Or, however they get the coaster down, that's how I'm coming down. There's no way I'm going to climb downstairs. It's not happening.
So you mentioned that it's been twice at Busch Gardens. Has it been Kumba both times, or another coaster later on that scared you a lot?
It was actually not a coaster at all. It was Drop Tower. And the most terrifying drop tower I still have been on to this day. That's Falcon's Fury. I go back and forth to not having any problem hopping on there, and then just still being extremely nervous every time.
Okay.
And I think it's more the anticipation of getting stuck.
Right.
That makes me the most nervous.
So which would you say of those two at Busch Gardens is the one that's kind of the granddaddy of them all, that edges the other out for being the scariest?
I guess Falcon's Fury is going to have to do it because it still scares me as an adult, and every once in a while I'll still get that feeling going up to it. So, yeah.
Well, okay. I was kind of hoping you would say that, because I can personally relate to that, in that I was just at Busch Gardens myself about 2 weeks ago. I've been there before numerous times over the years. I don't get to go there much because, as we were talking about before we started recording today, you and I live kind of diametrically opposed from Orlando. You're down in Tampa, southwest of Orlando. I'm up in New Smyrna Beach, northeast of Orlando. So for you, you're right there in Tampa. For me, I'm about 3 hours from Busch Gardens. So I'm much more likely to go to Orlando Park than Busch Gardens. But I do love Busch Gardens. But as I said, I was there a couple of weeks ago, and I had to go down there just for other personal reasons in the early afternoon. I'm like, well, I got my AP to SeaWorld and Busch. I'm going to go to Busch Gardens. Why not? I'm going to be down there anyway. And I just went for the afternoon for a few hours, and I had a great time. And one of my missions that day was to get on a ride that I'd not yet been on. I'd been on all the coasters there, but I had not been on Falcon's Fury. And it wasn't out of fear. It just, the last time I was there was for a special event, and Falcon's Fury wasn't open. Time before that, the person I was with is deathly afraid of drop towers and things like that. Wasn't about to go on with me, so I didn't go on. And then before that, it was not open yet. It was, that was the only 2 times I've been since Falcon's Fury has been installed and operating, has been these past 2 times, since having that opportunity until 2 weeks ago. And I love drop towers. I've been on 400-foot tall drop towers, the tallest ones that exist in the world. Well, until, the one opens up here at the Icon Park in Orlando. Yeah, you've heard about that one, the tallest drop tower in the world. It's 450 feet tall or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You going to do that, by the way?
Yeah, I'm sweating already. I'll do it. Yep. I will do it. I will be nervous the whole way, but I will do it.
So I've done, Falcon's Fury is not that tall. I think it's maybe a couple 100 feet tall-ish. Again, I've done things much taller. Oh, it's that high? Okay, I thought it was just short than that. Okay.
Yeah.
But still, I've been on taller ones. But nothing like it. It's very unique, and I was very curious to try it out. I'm not afraid of heights. I've been on tall coasters, the tallest in the world. I've been in tall buildings. I've done those tall buildings where they have like the glass floors where you're like just gonna look straight down and 500,000 feet up, whatever it may be. And, I'm not afraid of that stuff. So I was curious to experience Falcon's Fury, and it was a unique experience. I'll talk about my experience, but first let's talk about yours. So we've identified Falcon's Fury, understandably, as kind of your scariest theme park experience ever that you went ahead and did. So I want to kind of dive into that a little bit. Talk to me what it was like. You're entering the queue, and it kind of wraps around a little bit around the kind of that circular area where the drop tower is installed, and it's all outside there, and you can see the ride, you can hear it. So what's going through your head? What are you thinking as you're waiting to get on it this first time?
Oh yeah. You're seeing it from 275 on the way in,
right?
Right. I-4, whichever direction you're coming from, there it is. And you see it when you're going into the park and walking towards it and getting even closer. And and I had gone to the park that day. I am an annual pass holder, went to the park right after it had opened to go on Falcon's Fury specifically. And so gung ho for it. I was so excited walking into the park, seeing this thing. I'm like, wow, as I'm getting closer, I'm like, wow, that is real tall. That's way up there. And of course, it being new, it had a couple of slowdowns and mechanical, issues. So they had to keep stopping it, which made me even more nervous, as I told you before.
Right.
Those kind of things. But so that's it. I'm watching, waiting to get in the queue until I can get in the queue and watch them work on it and everything. But yeah, so that didn't start things off well. And it was like a 50-minute wait to begin with. And like you said, it's just outside wrapped around the ride itself. So you're just sitting there staring at it the whole time.
Right. And listening to it for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. So you went to Busch Gardens on this particular day explicitly to kind of conquer this ride, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Very
cool.
It was coming.
Cool.
I had seen the things about it, and I had to go try it out myself. And yeah, I wasn't scared about riding it until I got there. That's when the conquering started.
Okay. You get on the ride. Now, it can be a little different with coasters, although to your point earlier, kind of what I'm about to talk about, the analog for coasters, for most coasters at least, is the lift hill, that anticipation and going up higher and higher. Now with a drop tower like Falcon's Fury, it's about going, getting pulled up. And then the terror of all terrors, of course, this is part of the design, is it pivots forward slowly once you reach the top. And then after a few more seconds, which seems like probably a long time, you then finally drop. I'm going to guess that your kind of feelings of fear and so forth, they only increased once you got on the ride, correct?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And
okay.
I was going to say, right before you get on, you're stationed at one of the spots where you're going to ride beforehand, and you kind of get to stand there and stare face to face with somebody that was just on it. And that person was more scared looking when they got off than when they got on, and that's not common. So
right.
So that didn't help either.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So you get on the ride, finally your turn, sweaty palms, probably whatnot. So tell me how you're thinking, how you're feeling as you get on it, as it gets lifted up off the ground slowly, and then getting to the top and pivoting, kind of like everything leading up to that moment where you start dropping. So what are you thinking and feeling?
Oh man. Okay. So when you're first on there, it's a long wait because they have a lot of safety checks on that ride to walk around and make sure each individual person's on there, that you don't have anything in your pockets, your hands are clear and everything, especially back when it first opened.
Right.
And then the seat kind of tilts back and up a little bit. Oh, it starts going up. It gets up, and you think that you just keep hitting this point where it's like, this has got to be the top of this thing. Like, how is this still going? and every little tiny gust of wind makes it shake. It feels like it goes just has a little bit of give in it. So you feel that all the way up there. And then you start to see like the park, the edge of the park, the edge of Tampa, the horizon,
right.
The other side of Florida, Cape Canaveral on a clear day, it seems like you said, like it finally hits that point where it stops up top, and then you get tilted up. I have never been more terrified in my life, and I still am, even now. Like I'm feel better with the going up part, because that's like my time to look around and kind of to see what's happening.
Right.
But as soon as we tilt up, I am so scared, because I just feel like there's no way this thing could hold me. I am being held by the safety restraint that's there as on a coaster, that's it doesn't feel like that's a thing that's gonna like I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's gonna lock you in and like hold all your body weight for an extended period of time. It's like it's good for a loop, right? But is it gonna hold me up here for 10 seconds while I do this? And if it breaks down again with my nervousness, is like, is this gonna hold for 30 seconds, 40 seconds? Of course, I'm sure it will. But I don't know. That's what I think makes me the most nervous about that ride. And then after that, the drop is relief, man. It's it's just awesome. It's like exhilarating after that point, but oh man, so terrifying to get there.
Right. Now, in terms of that fear you were feeling leading up to and before the drop, did the fact that there's the secondary restraint, the seatbelt that keeps your restraint, that would keep your restraints closed even if they happen to fail, did that play into your mind at all and any kind of reassurance?
No, and especially not at Busch Gardens, because I have had an issue on Montu before where the seatbelt part unclipped on me as we were going up the first lift hill. On Montu.
Wow. Oh,
so all I had was the restraints, and I was trying desperately to clip the seatbelt in the whole ride. So yeah, that's why. I mean, that was a scary ride. It wasn't. This was so much the anticipation, but just like literally holding on to the rails on the side of your life, because I think that literally this thing might open up. Because if the seatbelt failed, then what else is going to happen on this thing? But yeah, those things don't really. It feels like those are a fallback to me. Like the actual restraint is the main thing.
Oh, absolutely. The seatbelt, that's why they're called secondary restraints. The seatbelts, and they're not installed on every ride like this. It'd be an inverted coaster like Montu or Drop Tower, like Falcon's Fury. They're purchased basically, the way these work is one of two things. Either the park in question and the corporation that owns it, they want to give reassurance to their guests. Or it's for insurance reasons to lower insurance premiums for the parks. They have secondary restraints, these mechanical, seatbelts and things like that. The insurance policies oftentimes are cheaper. So it's generally speaking a corporate policy. And this is why, for example, not so much at SeaWorld and Busch, but more so at, for example, Cedar Fair, who owns Kings Island, that I know you've been to, Cedar Point, and a host of other parks all around the country, and actually North America. They tend to be very careful. They like to have lower insurance premiums, policies, and whatnot. So they generally have those secondary restraints on their coasters and all their rides. Not everyone does, though. And that one of the challenges with those types of restraints is, yes, the insurance premiums can go down, and maybe some of your guests will feel more confident or more secure, but they also increase load times because the operators, ride ops, they have to not only check, say, a lap bar or primary restraint, but they got to make sure the seatbelts are closed. And then, people always have problems opening them at the end of the ride, and it just increases cycle times dramatically. So it's a problem for capacity of rides and line. So it's a lot of issues to factor in. But so anyway, you rode the ride and then you're flying down, face down, and it was like exhilarating, I think you said, and relief. Talk to me after you went through that and you got off the ride, you're back safe on ground again. Obviously, you made it through okay because you're right here with us today, thankfully. How did you feel after you got off the ride?
It was exhilarating. It made me realize that, obviously that there's plenty of safety precautions in there, and I realized it at the time, but it's just like you can put that all out of your mind. And knowing that, having been on tons of coasters and done a podcast about rides, talked to a lot of theme park creators and developers, knowing all the safety precautions that go into these things, how I can still put that all out of my mind and be completely out of my mind terrified and thinking that this thing that operates 100 times a day is gonna all of a sudden snap open on me. It's gonna be that one time. Right. And I'm gonna have to dangle up there like cliffhanger style until they can get up there and get me down. But yeah, I mean it's crazy, but it's still that one ride that every time I get up there, it's as soon as it starts tilting that, I start feeling like, oh man, I hope we're not face down too long this time.
How many times did you say you've ridden Falcon's Fury?
I'd probably say a good probably 10, 15 times.
Okay.
Getting other people to go on. My fiance is terrified. She was at a point where she went on it a couple of times and she was okay with it. She got more scared the more times we went on, to the point where she won't go on at all anymore. So I'm back
really.
solo again.
Do you know why that is?
Yeah.
Is it rolling the dice each time for her? What is it? Yeah.
I think it is. And she seems to be a little bit more nervous on coasters just in general too. Like when we're getting ready to load up to go on the coaster as well. So yeah, it just might be something, I don't know. I've talked to some other people that have felt that as well. Like the older you get, like you just feel a little bit more nervous about it. Like, oh, I got more to lose now. I don't know. Even though.
Okay. Interesting.
Like I said, it's totally safe, but yeah.
Right.
I'm not riding the ones at the fair anymore. That's for sure.
Okay, so back to you though with Falcon's Fury. So that first time, you felt exhilarated, you got off the ride. I mean, did you feel like you conquered something? Did you feel like you conquered your fear in certain ways?
Yeah, I would say as far as like actually like conquering it, I felt it probably more when I was younger with Kumba, because the fear more happened to me there, like on the spot. I would say, yeah, though it was still conquering something, because getting on there after seeing those people get off that ride and still getting onto it, that was a lot. And I was by myself, like I wasn't with another party, and they actually had me go up on by myself as well. Like there was a huge line of people, and I just didn't time it right with the people. So really? I was up there by myself the whole time as well. So yeah.
Gotcha. So you did feel pretty good about yourself afterwards. Yeah, you did feel pretty good about yourself.
No, definitely.
That first time. Okay.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Let me reflect a little bit of my personal experience. So first of all, I want to ask you a question. You've been to a lot of parks, you saw a lot of coasters, covered Universal for 10 years in the podcast. Have you ever been to Six Flags Magic Mountain?
No, I have not.
Okay. Are you familiar with a coaster that they have, again, not having been on it, but heard of it or seen pictures or video of a coaster by the name of X, or it's now known as X2 at Magic Mountain? Does that sound familiar?
Yes. It's got the you're on the either side of the bar, right?
Yes, it's like a wing style coaster.
Yes,
and the cars rotate forwards and backwards at certain parts of the ride using us.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, but kind of tying another thing you mentioned earlier with what I'm about to bring up, I'm an engineer. That's what I do in my for my day job to pay the bills and everything. And I've been an engineer for decades now, a couple decades. I love knowing how things work. I'm into cars, sports cars. I'm into trains, planes, coasters. Moving vehicles fascinate me. Rockets, and at theme park, seeing things close up. You're waiting online, and you kind of see how things work. And I'm like watching Falcon's Fury and how things rotate and everything. I love seeing how things work. And even the immersion, the technology, like you're talking about earlier with, say, Haunted Mansion, how Pepper's Ghost works, how things are floating there. And, I love all that stuff. And Universal and Disney, they have a lot of that highly themed type attractions. So I love how things work. And the X coaster, now it's known as X2, is one of 3 of a kind of coasters in the world. It's only 3 built like this that were ever built like this, where traditional coasters have a single set of rails, 2 rails that they ride on. This coaster has a second set of rails. So it's 4 rails total. And they're basically run parallel to each of the regular rails. So the primary rails, the trains ride on, the wheels are on either side of them, and that's how the coaster goes and goes where it's supposed to. The second set of rails, they're roughly parallel to the primary rails, but they basically move up and down. The space between the set of rails varies as you go through the ride. And along with that, there are basically pneumatic or air pistons that connect to the train that ride against those secondary rails. And as the rails get closer together or further apart, that will push the pistons in and they'll come out, because they're riding along with pressure. And those pistons going in and out as the coaster continues through its course, that's what controls whether the trains will stay where they are or rotate forward or backward. So it's a controlled rotation. And it's an absolutely brilliant system, a complex system, but very brilliant. And I loved learning how that works and watching it, in the station when the cars rotate up, for people to get out of the trains and so forth, and then they rotate back down after they're loaded. That's all part of that same system. Anyway, so it's just fascinating to watch that stuff. Well, the reason why I bring up X2 is X2, not just for me, but many of the guests we've had on the show already, when we talk about this, what ride has scared you the most? It's X, or a coaster like X. Again, there's 3 in the world. And I've personally been on all 3, by the way. There's one here in the US at Magic Mountain, and there's one in China, and then one in Japan. and they all work the same. For me, X has been the coaster that scared me the most in my life, still scares me. With the rotation, everything, you start off on all these rides going backwards. So you're going up the lift hill backwards. I'm sure that right there alone, given your lift hill, I see you shaking your head. No, it's a podcast, it's audio only, but we're seeing each other on camera for the recording here, and I totally get it. It's freaky. Yeah. You're going up the lift hill, and in the X2 version, it's got onboard audio, which is very unusual for a Six Flags coaster, by the way, and it plays Metallica's Enter the Sandman. And so it's kind of got that little bit of a kind of an edge to it, rock music, almost metal. Anyway, so you're going up there, listening to that soundtrack. And all three of these X-style coasters in the world do the same thing at the top. You're going up backwards. As soon as you get to the top, where you're going to go through the first drop, by the way, which is a 90-degree drop, it's a straight down drop, the cars rotate forward, so you're facing straight down. And you drop straight down that 90-degree drop. It is the most insane drop I've ever had in a coaster. It's not the tallest, the longest drop, but it's the most intense drop I've ever had in a coaster because of how you're in the kind of those wing seats. You're kind of out in the open there. It's not like you're inside of a car. You're kind of out and just freely there, held by these restraints that, like Falcon's Fury, you're facing straight down. The restraints could open and whatnot. It's scary. And it's just crazy intense. And so I have been on X2, originally X when it first opened. They later redid it as X2. And then these other two coasters in Japan and China. We've ridden these rides many times. And in fact, X2 is number 4 on my all-time coasters list, my top 10 coasters and all that. And it's because of that drop, just that drop alone. I love that drop because it's so scary, so intense. Anyway, I love those coasters. And here I am 2 weeks ago at Falcon's Fury at Busch Gardens, Tampa. I had heard about this ride. I've been on many, 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 many drop towers all over the world. And I'm like, I got to try it. And I'm watching. I'm like, oh, wow, that's insane. So here's my experience. So yeah, am I a little scared? I'm a little scared, but I'm going to conquer my fear. I do that all the time on rides. And I get on it. Mm-hmm. And we start going up slowly. And like you said, you kind of pause almost. It's like, oh, okay, this is how tall it is. And you keep going. Well, we're stopping periodically. I'm waiting for us to rotate forward, except it never happened. We get up to about middle way up the ride, and I hear this kind of garbled, we stop. We hear this kind of garbled noise on the PA speaker, and we never rotate forward. And then we come back down slowly. Turns out one of the people in the other pods on the ride had their cell phone out. And I'm surprised they didn't get ejected from the park. That's all another story. So they got to stay on the ride, and they just handed over their cell phone. And like, oh my God, here we go. And now we go back up again, finally. And this time we went all the way up. And it was like you said, you keep going, you kind of pause and keep going. It shakes a little bit, and you keep going. Finally get to the top, and then you slowly rotate down. This is the drop version of X, because you're facing straight down. You feel yourself pressing against those restraints. And you just come, bam, really smooth. You're dropping down basically with gravity, and it's intense. And it reminds me very much of X. In fact, Falcon's Fury in this way is even a little more freaky than X because it's a longer drop. X is about 200 feet tall. As you pointed out, Falcon's Fury is over 300 feet tall, 325. So they're very similar experiences in that first drop of X versus the drop on Falcon's Fury. And yeah, David, as he always is, here is producing this podcast. He's on with us here in the background. And he and another friend of ours and another producer of this show, Iva, they're coming out to Florida to hang out with me and go to all the local parks. And David, for example, has never been to Busch Gardens, Tampa, ever. That's going to be a first for him. And I already told David and Iva, I said, you two, I am issuing you a challenge. They're going to get on Falcon's Fury with me. And I know they're both a little nervous about it, and understandably, who wouldn't be? And so they're going to ride it. And I'm looking forward to riding with them, Anyway, long story short, I totally understand why this would scare you. And even rewriting it, even whenever I get on one of these X-style coasters, it freaks me out because traditional coasters, you're sitting back and there's a lap bar, but you're not pushing against the restraints during the ride. On a ride like X, or if you've been on a flying coaster, have you been on Manta at SeaWorld?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's a similar kind of thing. Yeah, where you're pushing against those restraints once they pull you up. And, it's like, oh, these better hold. So that kind of is freaking in and of its own self. And what's crazy, by the way, we were talking about seatbelts earlier. Not all B&M flying coasters, which is what Manta, that's B&M is the company that manufactured and designed that coaster. Same company, by the way, that designed and made Kumba, very famous roller coaster company. They do most of the flying coasters that exist in the world. I have been to parks that have a B&M flying coaster, same kind of concept, pulls you up, you're pushing down against the restraints. And they'll have seatbelts on other rides, like a ride like Monsu, for example, a B&M inverted coaster, and then other attractions. But then their flying coaster, where you're pushing down against those restraints the whole time, there's no seatbelt, there's no secondary restraint. It's like, this is the one you'd want to have it off. So it's kind of crazy in and of its own right, because you can't have that fail, because you're going to fall. You're done. It's over. Game over. Anyway, I totally get it. Falcon's Fury, I'm sure it scares a lot of people. You felt good about conquering it that first time. You're still scared each time, which I get, but you've conquered it. You can do it. Did facing that fear on that ride or Kamba, did that change anything, have any impact on your life, can you say?
I would say so. I think every challenge that you present yourself with, big or small, and I think that's a significantly medium-sized one, because you're really trusting quite a few people up the chain to make sure everybody did everything right. And some days at Busch Gardens, that is a lot of trust putting into people. I'll just say it that way. Especially when my seatbelt has failed before on Montu.
That's scary.
That was a thrilling ride, I will say. But yeah, I think every time you do face one of those things and come out on the other side, and know that you can do it again, it helps. It helps in every kind of life situation where you're nervous about approaching anything like that. Like, it seems very overwhelming and intimidating, but it's over in a couple of minutes. And I always like to thank my dad for pushing me onto the first coasters that I went on. Because otherwise I wouldn't have. I was very intimidated by any big ride or anything like that. Like the Scrambler was a bit much for me. So, seeing these coasters and everything when I came to Florida was like, oh, and he's like, no, you got to do it. And, once you do those things and see that it's not that bad. And on top of that, where else do you get the chance to do that? Like, where else am I 325 feet in the air taking a look around Tampa? And that's what I, really embrace about it. And, am looking forward to so much, because I haven't been to the parks really much since everything that's been going on, of course.
Right.
But, I'm really looking forward to getting back out there and getting back on these again, because I feel like I've been missing out on a big part of that.
Oh, sure. Understandable. So would you say that, for example, Falcon's Fury, conquering that, okay, sure, maybe you're a little nervous each time getting on it, but neglecting Falcon's Fury, having conquered that fear that first time, and every time for that matter, since you've been on it, has that helped you to maybe not be as fearful of other rides, kind of to be better prepared for them, to be able to handle them?
Yes. Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's one of those rides that's like, if you can do this one, then you can do any of the other ones. Come on. Like, nothing's really as bad as that. Except for, the lift hill kind of situation. You said, like, it'll always get me a little nervous on everything, but that is like the ultimate, like you say, just that hang time sitting there is kind of the ultimate tension, and nothing else really matches up to it. So if I can do that, then I can do anything else.
For sure. So besides other rides, would you say that perhaps, whether it be Falcon's Fury. Falcon's Flight is actually going to be the name of another coaster that's supposedly going to get built in the Middle East. That's another story. But anyway, Falcon's Fury at Busch Gardens, conquering that, Kamba, other things you've conquered ride-wise. Would you say that that's helped you in other areas of your life outside of theme parks in terms of dealing with fear?
Yeah. I work in a tech support kind of facet now. There's a lot of customer facing work that we do though. So I do have to talk to customers that, might not be happy with things that are going on and things like that. And you get tense and nervous sometimes every time you're going to pick up the phone, because it's going to be one of these ones that are going to be really bad. And it's the same thing. It's that lift hill. That phone ringing sometimes can be the lift hill. And, once you get on and you find out, it's not that bad. It's every time it's not as bad as you thought it was going to be. I would say it kind of helps out in those situations to where it makes you more confident. And on top of that, just the confidence in general, being able to do things like public speaking and podcasting and that kind of thing as well. Because like I said, I was a very anxious and nervous kid, not very popular growing up or anything like that. So I think it really did help, to get me out of that shell.
Sure.
To show me that, I'm more capable than I think I am in a lot of cases.
Excellent. That's awesome. Makes sense a lot too. Would you say that, not necessarily just facing fears like we've been talking about a lot so far, but just in terms of, you've been covering theme parks, Universal especially for 10 years and going to theme parks a long time. Would you say that, your enthusiasm for theme parks and going to theme parks all over the place, has that had any kind of significant positive impact in general on your life, besides facing fears?
Traveling. I think, you go to the theme park, you go to see these places, but you're going to Los Angeles. You're not just going to go see Disneyland. You're not going to go just see Knott's. You're going to go check out, the rest of LA when you can while you're there. And it really is that too, because theme parks are a safe place to go, right? You can travel all over the world, go to a theme park, and you're going to be safe within that zone of the park. It's a resort kind of thing, but once you step out of that bubble, once you're there, you kind of get to see more of the world. And that's really helped me in that respect, going to cover different theme parks and things, haunt events all over the place. And then branching out from there and seeing the rest of what that area has to offer has been really cool and really beneficial.
Outstanding. I have had the same exact perspective on things. I've traveled all over the world, largely for work, for jobs that I've had over the years. But where I've gone to theme parks, part of that travel, I'm already over there, I'm staying over the weekend or take some time off. Even probably one of the most extreme examples of this and more recent examples of this was my last big international trip was 2 years ago, March of 2019. I went to China for work. I was there for a total of 2 weeks, although the time I was there for work was maybe just a few days, but between PTO and the travel time and all that, I think I only had to take maybe a couple days off PTO, and with the weekends and whatnot, I had something on the order of like 8 days free between the weekends and then so forth. I visited about 4 or 5 different theme parks, went to the Great Wall of China, went to Shanghai Tower, I believe it's called I think it's one of the tallest buildings in the world, and did all this, went to Tiananmen Square and local food and experiencing the culture. And it was outstanding. Yeah, I could have, as some of my coaster enthusiast friends were kind of bugging me while I was on my trip. Oh, you should go to this park. You should go to this park. I'm like, no. I want to take it easy. I want to do other stuff besides theme parks. Yeah, sure. Any of us who travel to go to theme parks, which is a part of being a theme park fan. If you're going to go to theme parks, you're going to have to oftentimes have to travel. Yeah, sure. We could spend 100% of our time at theme parks, theoretically. You can eat the theme parks. You can even stay at hotels near the theme parks or in the theme park sometimes and be at the theme parks. And yeah, I guess some people do that. Teach their own. I encourage people. And again, we like to talk directly to our listeners at times. And this is one of those times here I'm going to do that where, listeners, if you're going to be traveling or already are traveling, you might be incentivized. You might be thinking, oh yeah, I want to go to all the theme parks I can and just fill my time with theme parks. Try to not do that so much. Yeah, okay, spend a lot of time at theme parks. I get it, sure. But try to take advantage of, let's say you're going to another country or going to some place that has all these special sightseeing things to do or crazy, unique local food that you're not going to get in the theme park because they're, more generalized theme park food, or whatever it may be. Try to get those experiences in and kind of have a well-rounded trip. It's so much more rewarding. I can tell you from personal experience, it sounds like Darren, you kind of have a similar perspective, is to, to go beyond the parks.
Yeah.
When you're traveling. So
exactly.
Yeah. So that's. I
was gonna say, we just recently, our last big trip was a few years ago too, and we went to LA for the first time, and to check out the horror events over there. So went to Knott's, and like the granddaddy of them all and everything. And we could have, we actually didn't even get a chance to go to Disneyland, like I said earlier, because of that. We didn't want to spend all of our entire trip there at the theme parks. As much as we love them, we didn't want to spend everything, the entire time in a tourist trap. We wanted to check out, I guess most of LA is, but see everything a lot more, that it has to offer, and a lot of those other things, the other aspects of the city that you don't get in the park. So
yep, yeah, and other guests that we've had on the show have said these same things. We've talked to a number of people that have traveled all over the world, like yourself, like myself, and, as part of this, whether it be for work, and then they go to the parks, like myself, because of it, or they're just traveling just to go to parks primarily, and they recognize, to do this other stuff, it's very valuable. And really it's sort of a nice side effect of being a theme park fan, is you can wind up, while despite your us being theme park fans, we're focusing on being in these safe environments, as you said, Darren, which are in and of themselves not very culturally accurate for where their theme parks are located. Usually they're, not necessarily represent of that region. While we're fans of all that, if we take that step outside those parks and spend some time accordingly, we can wind up being some of the most culturally diverse and culturally inclusive and culturally experienced people on the planet. Again, it doesn't have to be that way, but we have the opportunity to have that. And I've cherished that. And the number of experiences I've had that I remember this day, awesome stories and unique things that I got to do and experience and see and whatnot. The stories that I love to tell people that I meet, so much of that happened outside the theme park gates when I was traveling. Glad to hear yet another guest kind of share that same mentality. I think that's outstanding. So good discussion so far. We talked about fear and I'm not sure how familiar you are with our podcast. We're fairly new, but Coaster Challenge, certainly as a podcast especially, has a mission. We're basically looking to improve the qualities of people, singular, of people's lives by conquering the negative aspects of the human condition, fear being one of the most pronounced ones. And we're not necessarily talking just about conquering fear of a coaster, fear of a drop ride, like we talked about earlier today. Talking about conquering the real troubling fears in life. You mentioned a couple of them, being afraid to be on the phone with a customer that might not so kind to you or demanding or whatever. And I've been in customer support as well as an engineer. I relate to that, by the way. It could be public speaking, like you said, or just doing interviewing for a job. It could be going out on a date and being calm during that date so you can present yourself well, because dates are like interviews. Interviews for a relationship, not for a job. But, all these different things that happen in life and just, challenging, stressful situations that can cause us to have the fight or flight mechanism and run away in fear. And if we're better prepared to deal with those real situations, we're all going to be better off from it. Each of us can be better off from it. And then likewise, many people on this planet, very commonly deal with depression, anxiety, various forms of anxiety, social anxiety, and things like that, even physical ailments, that all of these things can very commonly be helped by going to theme parks, by getting away from the stresses of life, getting away from whatever may be depressing you or causing you anxiety, and giving your mind a break by being in one of these incredibly immersive environments, or even a not so well themed park like a Busch Gardens is not super highly themed, but it's got these thrilling rides that if something is going to take your mind off your troubles, it's going to be that thrill and that momentary fear that you're going to have there, and conquering that fear and the adrenaline and everything else that goes along with it, all those good chemicals that go in your body, combating the bad chemicals that fuel depression. Some of the things you've shared here today really go along with this in terms of, conquering fear has helped you to be able to deal with, more serious sides of your life, be better prepared for that. And again, theme parks helping with that and exposing you to more culture and whatnot. So that's all great. So thank you for sharing. Appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for having me on and for doing this and giving people that perspective on parks and making it more than this superficial, it's a fun ride, it's exciting, it's exhilarating. I really like that you do delve more into it and I respect that a lot. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we have, as we typically do, we have a kind of a second part to our interview. And the first part, the way we construct it is to kind of get exposure to each guest that we talk to, kind of how they've dealt with fear and conquered fear and how that's helped them deal with other parts of their lives, as we talked about with you, because each person has a different perspective. And again, you had a different perspective and kind of things that scare you and how you dealt with it. But the second half of the interview is fun. I think it's going to be fun here, given some things you've alluded to, because we kind of talk about just kind of our fun experiences being theme park fans. So let's dive into that here. Now, you may have already told us the answer to this question, but maybe not. I'm thinking maybe Montu is the answer to this question, but maybe you have something else to share. But what my question here is what has been your craziest moment on a theme park attraction?
In thinking about that, it has to be the Montu situation. I mean, it's like literally after the first lift hill, you go over that curve and it's just like straight down into the drop, and that's when it just goes click and it's just flapping on my chest. I feel like the seatbelt hit me, and then immediately just holding on to the restraints there and just gripping like white knuckled the entire time, like thinking that I am somehow holding this thing together. But yeah, that it was, and there's no way to to tell anybody. I mean, maybe up on that first brake hill, I could have like signaled, but what would that have done at that point?
Right.
I was just worried about holding on.
When you got done with the ride, did you let a ride ops know that there was a problem?
Yes. I let them know that happened, and they said, "Oh, shoot, thanks for letting us know about that." And then they just went on and loaded another person onto the ride. So.
Oh boy.
Oh, yeah.
Boy. Well, hopefully they at least made a note of that for maintenance to take a look at that seat that evening.
Yeah.
Or I'd like to think, but yeah, at some point I'm sure it had to have been noticed because they do buckle those seat belts and they pull on them. I generally see them pull on them, but I'd like to think that got fixed pretty quick. But was that your first time on Montu, by the way?
No, it wasn't. I've been on there several times before, so I wasn't too concerned about it. I had gained some weight and lost some weight, so there was a period of time where I wasn't actually able to get on there. So I had just got to the point where I was able to get on there. That seatbelt would have given me a little extra security because I only felt a couple of clicks coming in there. So and that's what it was. I was probably like at the edge of the seatbelt restraint, and they were just like, "Oh, okay, that's good." And
interesting.
Went on with it, but yeah.
Right. Interesting. Okay. What would you say of all the theme parks you've been to? Well, actually, yeah, let me ask you this question. Of all the theme parks you've been to, which one is your favorite?
Universal Studios Florida. The original park is and always will be my favorite park. How it was and how it is still.
Okay, to be clear, you are referring to USF, not Islands of Adventure, just the original OG. Okay, gotcha. Okay, and then what would you say is your favorite attraction of all time?
My favorite of all time is Back to the Future, and it might not just be because of the attraction itself. I am a huge Back to the Future fan.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, got a big Back to the Future collection. I met everybody from the movie.
Really?
I've got a sports almanac signed by everybody. It's definitely one of my more obsessive aspects, I would say. That's one of my favorite attractions for that purpose. My favorite one to go on a regular basis now at the park is actually Men in Black. Believe it or not, I have a blast with it.
Oh, nice. Time. Nice. So yeah, and certainly back in the late 1980s when Back to the Future came out at Hollywood and Orlando, and this around the same time. I think it was 87 when the first Star Tours attraction opened. And I love Star Wars. In fact, I like Star Wars more than Back to the Future. But to me, Back to the Future is a better implementation of that general type of technology. The vehicles are not quite as large, so it's kind of a little more realistic movements. And Star Tours has improved over the years with some technology upgrades. But the Back to the Future vehicles, those were really cool back in the day when they first came out.
And just having that like dome, having it projected on the dome, and you feel like your vehicle is in the ride more than you're having a projection at the front of the ride vehicle.
Exactly.
And I think that's what makes the big difference with it. Yeah,
that's a very good point. So you mentioned Men in Black. So Men in Black, I'm at Universal Orlando all the time. Men in Black is a great movie series, awesome movie series. And I love all eye candy and all the little movie things and the music and, the Tommy Lee Jones and the Will Smith stuff on the ride. That's all cool. But I love shooting rides. My favorite is Toy Story Midway Mania. I will openly admit, embarrassing myself, I suck at Men in Black. Because it's not like with Toy Story Mania, where I aim, it hits. With Men in Black, I just can't figure out how to get the guns to shoot things. And like whenever I'm with my friends, they're like scoring like orders of magnitude better than I am. And I've been talking to them about all the tricks, and I'm just trying to learn the tricks to get better. But so I'm guessing you're one of those people that like knows a lot of the tricks and gets crazy high scores.
Oh yeah, pretty much every time. It's like a constant competition, and they do change a lot of things quite often on there. They have total access to adjust the scoring system whenever they feel like it. So they will. So things that used to be rack up a ton of points do not do it anymore. But the main point is keep your finger on the trigger and keep shooting the same thing over and over again. Get to a room, point to something, and just stay on it. And the smaller the target, the more the points. Generally speaking, that'll get you going. And then the exhaust point section, just hit it 1,000 times the other car, and it's total luck because, like you said, it's not best in maintenance, as far as that goes. So you might have a bad gun. That's definitely possible going through that.
Got it. That makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you. So in terms of especially things not working all the time, so what would you say is your least favorite attraction?
Probably, I want to pile on things like Fast and the Furious. But that's the newly my least favorite attraction. But things like that and Shrek, the stationary theaters kind of aren't my thing. T2 did a lot of novel and really cool things with it, mixing the 3D and actual, actors running around and that kind of thing was cool. But, when it's just like a movie playing like the Shrek and Despicable Me, those kind of things, I went on them, once or twice to see them, and that's about it. But Fast and Furious now, I just don't know how that happens in 2018. How does that?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people were hoping and even expecting, and I could even see, especially with Universal and all their success and the budgets that they now have for their rides, that they may have their day with Fast and the Furious. Maybe it's wishful thinking. I'm a huge fan. Again, I love cars, the Fast and the Furious franchise, especially the recent, past 5 or so movies, since they've kind of moved into the whole kind of action, crime thriller and away from street racing stuff specifically. I have hopes that Universal will eventually, they'll take out that ride, which of course they will, because it's not the craziest, most popular ride. And they'll put in like maybe a next gen version of a test track type system, dynamic attractions, real car, because type ride. Radiator Springs Racers, a California Adventure, is amazing. Great ride for cars. Test Track is a great ride. It's been around for a couple decades now. I don't think Disney has even, at least now, has a patent on that or a, royalties on that, where Universal will be not incentivized to license it or whatnot. I think that's maybe free reign. And Universal does a lot of work with dynamic attractions, a lot of work. So I'm sure they could probably do something. It was just a matter of space or budget. I'm hopeful that something better will eventually come of that franchise. It's their most successful franchise as a production company. So I'm hoping. But
that would be great.
Yeah.
To have that with the Test Track with an edge to it would be so nice for sure.
Oh yeah.
Maybe like even the tuning aspect.
That
would be really interesting.
Potential could be incredible. Yeah, for sure. What, talk about your favorite park being one of your home parks here in Orlando. And I can relate. I don't necessarily separate studios and islands. I kind of look at them as one of my home park resorts, just as I look at Walt Disney World as an overall. And Universal Orlando is pretty much one of my most favorite, if not my literally most favorite park resort in the world. Especially with how they've improved it over time and some of the recent attractions and getting away from all the screen rides and doing more to conventional practical effects and coasters and whatnot. And the theming, all the crazy theming they're getting into, where they're even beating up Disney, in my opinion, in that regard. I'm a huge fan of Universal Orlando. By the way, you mentioned Terminator 2. So you said that you've not really been to the parks much, understandably, with what's been going on with the pandemic. Have you not seen the Bourne Stuntacular yet?
No, I have not seen it in person. When I was still on the podcast when it first came out. So for coverage, we watched, some videos that people had recorded. I know it's nothing like seeing it in person from what I've heard from everyone else. But yeah, I did not actually get to see it in person yet. I'm still definitely looking forward to that as well.
Nice. I'm somewhat unique because I am a coaster enthusiast. I keep track of how many coasters I've been on. I love coasters. I ride them over and over again. Unlike, some coaster enthusiasts, I love pretty much every aspect of theme parks. I love flat rides. I love shows. I love the animal exhibits and the animal shows at SeaWorld. I love it all. I love stunt shows. Stunt shows are outstanding. And, Waterworld, Hollywood is incredible. I've seen the Pirate Stunt Show in Shanghai, which uses like the iFly technology, kind of the vertically mounted turbo lift fans to simulate skydiving. And they've got these two guys dueling in the air, sword fighting against each other. Super cool. Really cool. But that's kind of a one-trick wonder for that show. I have seen the Bourne Stuntacular. And again, I love technology. I love trying to figure out how things work. And there are so many moments in that show where it's like, wait, how did they just do that? Did that guy just do it? What? And all this stuff going on from a technical perspective and from a just immersion perspective, Bourne Stuntacular is the best stunt show I've ever seen. So
awesome.
Definitely see it in person when you return to studios. Yes. It is a very much a worthy replacement of Terminator 2, which was an amazing attraction in its day. And I'm a huge fan of Terminator as well. But yeah, you don't have to, for listeners listening, I'm a Bourne fan. I've seen the movies. I like them. I'm not like a crazy fan. You don't have to be a fan or really know anything about the Bourne series to appreciate this show. Don't ignore it. It's great air conditioning break during the summer and hot weather, by the way, for like half an hour. Go see the show in Hollywood in Universal Studios. You'll actually be really impressed.
Yeah.
And of course,
people that I've talked to that go they do this for a living. They go see these shows that come out, and they see all the theme park shows that come out everywhere, and they come out of this one and they're like, wow.
Yeah.
And I'm just adding you to the list of everyone that's just been totally blown away by it. So I can't wait. I'm very excited to check that out.
One kind of last specific question I want to ask you, then a couple last things for you, Darren. You mentioned you've been to a lot of parks all over the world. So have you been to parks outside the U.S.?
No, I've been to parks all over the country. I haven't actually been to theme parks outside of the United States.
Oh, okay.
I've been outside the United States. I've been over to Netherlands and UK, but I have not been to the parks there. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
But all over the United States, our family was like hop in the Aerostar van and go drive kind of family when I was younger. So we would go and check out theme parks everywhere. Hadn't been to that Six Flags, but I've been to Six Flags in Georgia. I've been Six Flags over Texas. We've been, of course, to Kings Island, like I said, Wisconsin Dells. Spent a lot of time up there when I was younger.
Oh yeah,
the more terrifying unofficial rides that they had up there, like oh gosh, what are those slides that are made of concrete and you just go down on a sled, basically?
Oh, you're talking about
like a luge.
Alpine slides.
Yes, yeah, yeah. The true terror, I guess. Yeah.
Well, those are very dangerous. I've been on many of those. I grew up in the Northeast, so the Appalachians, and New Jersey even has them, or used to have them. But New Hampshire, I went to camp up there. They've got a couple water parks that have those as well in the summer, and their ski resorts in the winter. And I've gotten hurt on those because I was a stupid kid, 12 years old, and I went too fast because you control your speed on it. Push forward, you go fast. Pull back, you're braking. And I'd be a stupid kid going around a corner too fast because I was a kid, and I, fallen off and, got like a, skinned up thigh or knee or whatever. I healed from it. It's battle scars, whatever, as a kid.
Yep.
But yeah, those are fun rides. I haven't been on one of those in years. And granted, I would not ride them now like it is as a kid because I know better. That's not about fear. That's about just being sane of things. But
just practical.
Yeah,
like I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. So Studios is your favorite park of all the ones you've been to. You've been to a lot of them in the US here. Tell me about what makes Studios. I know you love Men in Black. You love Back to the Future, although that's not there now anymore. Just talk to me a little bit about what makes Studios your favorite park.
It was a lot of that. It was when we first went to the theme parks. First we went to Magic Kingdom, and I saw it was the Disney stuff, and I was 10-year-old boy. So, Disney was cool, but I was into Ghostbusters. I was into these kind of things. And I had no idea what they had available at Universal. I didn't know what I was walking into. My mom was like, it's a TV studio and they have a theme park there and you can check it out. Like we knew nothing about the park. So go in there and literally walk in. The first thing I see is Ecto-1 sitting there, and Egon walks over and he's like, hey, welcome to Universal Studios. And I'm like, oh my God. And from there, it's just like everything. It was geared to that 10-year-old kid, that especially at that time, with those rides, Kong and Jaws and everything that was there. It was just like, everything I loved. It's like, what's next? Back to the Future. What? Oh my God. Okay. Marty's hanging out over there with Doc by the DeLorean. Okay. No problem. So it was that place where literally everything came to life, that I loved from TV and stuff. And then, after that, like, let's go to a taping at Nickelodeon Studios. Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is a real place. Like, forget Disney. I don't even remember going there anymore. It's all about this now. So yeah, and no matter how much changes, I still see it. When I walk in, I still see it how it was then, and I think that's maybe a lot of the nostalgia keeps me there. I just love the feeling that I get when I'm there. So
would you say, sure. I know you're a big horror fan like I am. Would you say that, you're a big fan of like movies in general? And so that's kind of part of it is you're kind of living the movies, riding the movies, as one of the old slogans goes. Is that it?
Definitely. Big movie buff. And I was a big technology buff when I was a kid too. I would say actually out of all the Disney parks, Epcot was my favorite for having being able to experience VR for the first time at interventions, that kind of thing. That's what I was really into. And going to Universal, and at that time screens were cool. It wasn't a bad thing to have screens all over the place. So seeing them use that, like the Back to the Future ride and everything like that, in those new ways that I've never seen before, even like the Birds 3D Alfred Hitchcock experience, going in there for the first time and seeing the 3D that comes out towards you as opposed to the ones that go into the screen. Living in Illinois, that's the kind that we got, the red and blues. So it was very cool to see that, like, new technology come to life, and then them using that to bring my shows shows and characters and everything that I love to person is so cool.
Sure, and I can totally relate to that. And I can tell you, have you been on Hagrid's yet, by the way?
Yes. Yeah, I have.
Yeah, so Hagrid's was a technological marvel for Universal, and it is, by all accounts, the most complex coaster ever built in the world. It launches, the drop track, the level of theming, the quick switch technology with the reverse launch and the spike, and all that stuff put together in one coaster is just insane. And those are a lot of reasons why that is the most expensive coaster history, at least to this date. No real screens in that ride. And again, I think that's Universal correcting course. Not that screens are a problem. Screens have their place. I think Gringotts is a great example of integrating screens with a physical ride, with a practical effects and whatnot. And again, Forbidden Journey is another great screen ride. That's a good screen implementation. But again, Hagrid's doesn't only have screens, has effects, has practical effects. And then Velocicoaster, which I'm guessing you've not been on yet because you've not been back to the parks.
Unfortunately, not. No. Oh man,
okay.
I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, but anyways, if you've not been back to the parks yet, so are you planning to go back to Universal soon?
Yeah, we're just kind of waiting for the spring break kind of crunch to go, kind of hitting that wave right here now before the summer starts, kind of renew our passes and get back out there again because it
awesome. Anyway, so long story short, I hope that you're able to get going on these passes soon and get back there before the summer rush and get some get Born Spectacular, get on Velocicoaster, just get back to your favorite park and so forth.
Oh yeah, so for sure. And it's great to have new experiences at your favorite old haunt, so.
Oh yeah, literally. And we're already gone, over an hour here. I would love to talk to you about Halloween Horror Nights and haunts, but I want to be mindful of the time. And I think, I think we probably could have that discussion another time, maybe closer to Halloween, but we can talk about that. But anyway, with all that said for now, my last main question for you is there any advice, given everything we've talked about already, any advice you'd like to give our listeners, given knowing our mission and all that?
Just that trust in the people that work in the park to know that it's safe. In every situation, like with a coaster or going into a haunted house or anything like that, the whole point is to have fun and not get hurt and for you to have a good time. And that's the goal of it. And that's what they're aiming for as well. And once you realize that and you can get over that, know that the danger is not really that real. You'll be able to experience so much more in life, and like you said, start off with those little steps, get on that ride, experience that. And then that'll lead to leaving the park on vacation that one time and going to see something, that changes your life. So go ride that ride.
Thank you. Great advice. We've, I think, talked about this a little bit on this podcast before. Obviously, anything in the world, things can happen. Bad things can happen. Now, probably one of the most serious ones is, a car accident. And when you're driving a car, riding in a car, cars are very dangerous. Accidents happen all the time. I see them happen almost every day. Things like trains and planes, much less common to have accidents. They say, planes are super safe to fly compared to cars. That's absolutely true. The statistics show that. Well, something that's even safer than planes is coasters and theme park attractions. Yes, occasionally, very rarely at a traditional theme park like Universal, at Disney, at Busch Gardens, there'll be something. Usually it's a very, very minimal thing that happens, just a minor injury. Very rarely deaths occur, extremely rarely. But again, even compared to planes crashing and people getting killed and whatnot, it's much less common for those types of things to happen to one person or more than one person at a theme park. So theme parks are inherently very safe, very low chance of anything going wrong. And so then that gives people an opportunity to have some fun and go and do thrilling things and conquer some fears in a very safe manner. And so I thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think that's great advice, is to encourage people in these very safe, the safest environments really on the planet, just to do thrilling things, especially to go out there and do stuff. So thank you. Appreciate that. The last thing I'll ask is if you'd like to share anything in terms of how people can find you. I know you mentioned there's a Horror Nights theme podcast that you're being involved with. And so if you could share how people could find you and so forth.
Certainly. That's the podcast is the Dead Man's Digest. So hopefully that will be back up soon. You can find me at Deadman Darren on Twitter. That's where I'll be posting anything new that I'm doing. I've also got a couple other projects in the works. One mainly about props for movies and theme parks and that kind of thing, and how they're made and the people that make them and that kind of thing. So that's what I'm working on now and kind of getting that developed. So stay tuned for more information on that.
Awesome. That's exciting. Well, thank you very much, Jared. I appreciate your time. And I have a feeling, given your focus on horror and haunts and so forth, this won't be the last time we'll be talking to you. So thank you for your time, though, today.
Oh, thank you. I'd love to come back on.
Thank you, Andrew. Andrew. Thank you, Darren. That was a really good episode, Jenna.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of got me pumped for the Halloween horror stuff. You know me, I'm not big on going through mazes and all that stuff, but I've gone to a couple of Universals here in LA, and oh man.
Oh, I know. I used to be very afraid to go in the haunted mazes and all that stuff. I've been to Not Scary Farm. I've been to Fright Fest. I have not experienced Horror Nights at Universal Hollywood, but I did get to experience Horror Nights at Universal Orlando, and that was back in 2017. It was a very good experience, but I never got to do the mazes. But I will be going to Florida this October, and as I told when I meet with Andrew and Iva, yes, I am taking the challenge to go experience every haunted maze at Horror Nights at Universal Orlando. So it's going to be very interesting. So
yeah, when I did it, it's been years since I've done any kind of Horror Nights thing. I think the last one I did was the preview at Magic Mountain with you.
Fright Fest. Yeah.
And my anxiety level was just really high with that, if you remember.
I remember you were hanging onto my arm when we were walking through the scare zones, but it really wasn't that bad. And at least I got to get a behind the scenes of how it all works. And yeah, so it's like almost like knowing what they do. I was glad to say that I didn't get any surprises. You know how some of those cast members
they love to surprise you, and they love to target the ones that are like me, that are like cowering behind somebody because they know they can scare you, and they jump out, and they do scare you.
Oh yeah. Well, this was a really good interview, and we've got a very exciting one next week. But first, Justin, how will our listeners be able to find us on social media?
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And if you want to see more from us, we upload every Friday. And check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all at Coaster Challenge. Links in the description.
Thank you, Justin. And yes, guys, make sure to send us some feedback and make sure to give us a thumbs up or give us a 5-star rating on your podcast network on our latest episode. And feel free to leave some comments as well. And if you guys have the feedback, just go ahead and give us a contact. We always will respond to every contact that comes our way. But like I said, we've got a very exciting episode next Friday, and I hope you guys will come tune in with us. But until then, this is David Cantu.
This is Jenna Gazelle.
And we'll see you all next week, right here on Coaster Challenge.